Now.
Yay.
Yay. We're going to start admitting people. Hi, everyone coming in.
Hello. So exciting to see you guys.
Hello. I love seeing all the names pop up. Oh, it's
I know.
exciting.
I always get really excited about that. And we have our regulars as well. So good to see you. Sorry
Now,
Hello,
we're running a
regulars.
little bit late. We just had to sort out some tech issues. But thank you so much for being patient. We are actually recording the meeting as well. So we'll get to post that. But we're just seeing if we can make it live to our page as well, which will be exciting. So you can see the little circle on the live stream. Is it there, Jane?
it's preparing to go live. So as long as
So am I.
uh everyone could just have a
Just
good
am I.
old chuckle at Jane, who's like, like this with the tech stuff.
Jane's amazing. Jane's been away in Bali. She's been sending us pictures, and
Yeah, now I need another
I
holiday.
thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
And a lot of you with you know, children in their late teens and 20s will relate to this. But I remember Jane telling me that she told her eldest son, Indy, under no circumstances when he was traveling was he to ride on a motorcycle. And I get these pictures of Jane from Bali on the back of a motorcycle, and I'm just going,
I was wearing a helmet.
yeah,
Do as I say, not as I do.
Well,
exactly.
here's the difference. I could afford the travel insurance with
Ah,
the motorbike.
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. True,
Fair
true.
enough. Well, good evening to everyone. So are we live, Jane?
Well,
We're
we're definitely recording and I'm just it's waiting to stream onto our Facebook page, so hopefully that's working as well. It says that it is. Um so let's get into it and I'll just keep fiddling with it as well. But it said
okay. Well, welcome everyone. We are very, very excited. Tonight we have a special guest. We haven't had her on Book Queens before, but we know that so many of you are fans. So it's the beautiful Victoria Purman, and we're talking to her tonight about her 20th book. Her 20th
20th.
the radio hour. And we know so many of you have followed her before. You've loved her books. You'll probably know her from the women's pages, the Women's War, the Land Girls, and so many titles. So maybe you'll tell us in the comments whether you have read Victoria's books before or whether you're a complete newbie. But she's an absolute delight. As you know, we love to have guests on Book Queens who are supportive of other authors, and Victoria is certainly that. She participates in many festivals, she participates in mentoring programs. She's got great energy. She's always a lot of fun. So we can't wait to talk to her tonight. Welcome, Victoria.
Hello, hello. And now look, I don't know about the energy given it's this time of night on a Monday, but I'm perky. I've got a glass of South Australian wine. What more could I want?
Yes, that's
Good
right.
on you. That's great. I've got a sneaky Shiraz here, but probably need an extra glass. So 20 books. I mean, first of all, that is just inspiring, impressive, and
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I know that you have a huge readership in Australia and overseas now in America, but in Australia, a lot of fans, but I don't know whether, how many people actually know about your past, how you came to writing, what made you pick up the pen, I guess, for the first time, and
Pick up. Mm.
was being a published author always a part of your plan?
It really was. I loved reading. I think it goes back that far. I loved reading, and I was a total bookworm. My favorite thing was the library. Um, as a kid, we for a year, my family lived up in the South Australian Riverland and outside of a town called Morgan, and one of the workers on the farm that my dad managed would go into Morgan much more often than we did And he was under instructions to go to the library and get the next Nancy Drew book that I hadn't read. So I was distance didn't even stop me from reading, and so it was always a passion of mine. And when it came to sort of thinking about a career, I didn't know anyone who was an author.
Mm,
Well, I'm going back to the early 80s, I guess.
mm,
And Australian publishing has just absolutely blossomed since those years, since probably the early 90s, I guess. You two would know, especially you, Belinda, you were there at the forefront of this new wave. And so I didn't really know anyone who was an author, but I knew I loved reading and I loved writing and words. And when I was a teenager with my then best friend, we would type up stories on our typewriters because that's what we had back then, and illustrate them with pictures and staple them together. And that was our idea of writing a book.
mm,
Um,
mm.
and then, so I went and studied journalism after high school because it was about writing. And so I did that degree, and then I was a journalist at the ABC in Adelaide here in radio and television for 5 or 6 years. And then I moved into the behind the scenes world of politics and communications. I worked for a company and I worked in a government department. So I've done kind of a lot of things, but all of them revolve around words and distilling something to its essence and communicating ideas and public health messages and things like that. So
Mm.
I've never really left that world of writing, but one day it was a standing joke with my husband and me. We'd go into a bookshop and I'd say petulantly, "Why aren't my books on the shelves?" And he'd say, "You haven't written any." So I finally, after we had 3 kids, and the youngest one was 12, I kind of thought I was too old to enter the Miles Franklin, way past 35. But I thought I'd really try to make that dream come true.
Mm,
And I went and did a writing course at Writer's Essay, as it's
mm,
now known. And I met published authors, and I heard about the Romance Writers of Australia organisation.
mm,
And I was writing romance back then. And because I worked in a really serious, heavy environment,
mm,
dealing with all kinds of social issues, which were intractable a lot of the time. And so I wanted some real escapism when I came home.
mm,
Um, and so I joined RWA between the workshop in February and going in August. I wrote a book,
mm,
and I pitched it there it was the Gold Coast in 2012.
mm.
And that seems like a very easy road, but actually there's a lot of years in between
No, that
Well,
was
it
typing
seems
up
like
those
a
little
long
stories.
apprenticeship.
Yeah. So I
that
was
was the
15 when I
recovery.
started typing up those little
Mm,
stories, and I was 48 when I got my publishing contract.
Yeah.
wow. Mm,
I think
mm,
I think that's one thing that we really appreciate, that so many writers, it is a long road and you have to have quite a lot of determination and you have to really love what you're doing. And I really relate to what you're saying about the lack of role models because that was my case as well. I actually started off in the late 90s as a publicist in publishing, and basically the authors were men. There were probably some women writing books on motherhood or
mm.
things like that. But I used to have to take men out on tour. And
Oh,
I,
stories there,
I
Belinda.
think, well, I think, even though the radio hour was set in the 50s, there was, I would get asked to do things that you wouldn't even dream of asking your publicist to do, to
Mm.
iron your shirt or to sew a button on for you. And I used to think, I'm not your mummy,
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
I'm your publicist.
yeah. It's this. Somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Very much. So, turning to the radio hour, it's set in the golden age of Australian radio. So, can you just tell everyone, you drew the period very well. Tell us a little bit about what that time was in Australia, what people were thinking, what was going on in Australia, and how important radio was to people in forms of entertainment, what it meant to a family.
Mm,
yeah. It's so hard to go back and imagine these days with these, right?
Yeah.
mm,
these are not just a phone, they're a computer, they're a TV, they're a bank account, like a bank teller, God, they're everything now. Before these, there were these, and these have always been around. But before TV, there was radio, and it really was the supreme. It and there were newspapers too, which are disappearing before our eyes. So where people got their news was from the radio and
Mm.
from daily newspapers. And in some cities, there was a morning and an afternoon newspaper, and there was at least the ABC and a commercial radio station which was very news focused and very serious in its broadcasting. So that was the era when no people didn't go to the living room in the after dinner and sit and watch TV. Or God, now how many options do we have with streaming?
Yeah.
There was radio. And so there were radio serials, and Blue Hills is perhaps the most famous one.
Mm.
It was so huge, Blue Hills.
Mm.
Um, it aired about lunchtime after the country hour on the ABC, and all the farmers would come in from lunch, the men, and pretend they didn't listen to Blue Hills, but they really did. And Blue Hills was set in a farming community, in a small regional town surrounded by farming communities. So it really spoke to those people. But for people in the city, it was a kind of idealistic version of what a small country town was like. And, we see that today with rural romance in particular, small
Mm.
town romance, where we like to think that there's a place in the world where you can go and find yourself and be yourself, and there's a welcoming community. And that's what Blue Hills, that radio serial,
Mm.
was to people back then. And there
Mm.
wasn't just Blue Hills, there was When a Girl Marries and Portia Faces Life, and Dr. There were numerous, appealing to men, to women, to children, to both. There were spy dramas. So it was a real cornucopia of plot lines of genre. Um,
Mm. I was
so it was,
speaking to
radio
my
was
father
fascinating.
about it just recently, actually, just for a sort of a tiny reference in the book I'm writing. And he was talking to me about how he would listen to Blue Hills and everything. But he also told me a story that I didn't know about Pick a Box. Was that the radio show that was
Yes, it was a
really
quiz show.
hugely popular, and
Yes.
apparently my grandfather won tickets to Pick a Box, and they all ended up going to the recording of Pick a Box, which was huge, and my grandfather won 2 weeks in a row, and they went, and it was, so it's like radio was a really big deal, and people would go to the recording of it as well. But with Blue Hills or any of the radio shows, have you gone into the archives and listened to those? And how do you feel that the introduction of television changed radio? Do you think that was immediate? I know that we've swung
Yeah.
back a bit with podcasts, but
That's so true. That's
yeah.
so true. And it's been interesting to watch.
Mm.
I tried to listen to as much as I could, but sadly, most of the episodes have disappeared.
Mm.
Mm.
They were seen as a bit ephemeral. They weren't recorded for posterity. A bit
Mm.
like, for people of my age, I'm 60, many, many episodes of Countdown just disappeared because no one thought
Uh,
to record them, or they
Mm.
used the tapes over and over and they've disappeared. So I have listened to some episodes of Blue Hills. Um, um, and that was really interesting. And it's funny, there's a show, The Archers is a radio serial in the
Yes.
UK that still goes to air as a radio serial.
Mm.
I think it's 70 years that has been going to air, still popular. And I've got the BBC Sounds app on my phone, so I often listen to interviews and other podcasts and things. And you can go to drama, and I thought,
Mm.
there's drama. They
Yeah.
stream
Yeah.
they streamed radio drama. They're still producing that radio drama. So it's phenomenal. But what happened was TV came in 1956 to coincide with the Melbourne Olympics, and that's the kind of year that I've set the book in,
Mm.
because radio is about to change forever. And there are people in the book still clinging to what they know and clinging to radio. But TV didn't change things overnight, because it broadcast in the eastern states first,
Mm.
didn't come to South Australia until a few years later, and consequently the other capitals, it was rolled out there. So it wasn't an overnight thing. And the other prohibitive factor was the cost. Televisions were really expensive.
Mm,
So often families would buy them on hire purchase. It's a
mm.
term we probably don't hear anymore. So they would save up, and it was a lot of money. And they came in those big old cupboards. I mean, it was like
Yeah,
a
I
piece of
remember them. Yeah.
furniture,
Yeah.
and like the radiograms were. There was
Yeah.
the record player on one side and the radiogram on the other, and
Yeah.
they took pride of place.
Mm,
So the TVs did the same, but by the very early 60s, once TV had rolled out in the regions as well,
mm,
the golden days of radio were over. But I
mm,
thought it was just such a rich and ripe environment to set this book, because um, these people really don't know that things are about to change forever.
mm.
So my character, Martha Berry, she's been working at the ABC. I didn't create a fictional network. She's been working there her whole working life. And she finally gets a big break. And the sadness is that the show she loves and is working on will fade because of the
Mm,
arrival of TV. And
mm,
all the stars in radio who were the men
Yeah.
moved over to this exciting new medium, and took the glory there as well.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So that was like you started, I mean, you could really feel in this book your connection to this story. And I love it when a writer, you can tell the writer loves the subject, that the writer is passionate about it. So you actually started your cadetship in radio, is that correct? And
That's
that was
right.
in the 80s at the ABC. So it just, you felt that these people were very real. The situation was very real because obviously you had a connection, even though it's some decades later.
Yeah.
How different was the ABC of the 80s for women compared to the ABC of, the late 50s? And, how, if you have knowledge of what the ABC is like for women now, maybe you can give us a bit of insight into just how, because this is really our government, um, radio station. It should be setting the example for everyone else. So how was it?
It's an interesting question. Women, in the era when TV started, women were there, but in really specific categories: secretaries, typists,
Yeah,
and when they came into the ABC, they were as producers, which is who are the people who create the programs,
yeah,
organize the scripts, even perhaps write the scripts, hire the directors, hire the talent. In TV they call them showrunners, but they're really in charge of the show, and it's their vision. Women got their break, but it was in education programs.
mm,
For children, hugely important. And Let's Join In. I don't know if anyone would remember that.
mm,
we might
Let's
get
Join In
someone
was
to
a
put
radio
it in the
program.
comments if they do remember it.
Yeah.
mm.
Oh, I can see people are commenting. I'll open the chat so I can see the comments. Oh, there we go. So women were employed, but in defined areas. And of course, this was the era when if a woman was married, she couldn't work.
Yeah.
She lost her
Mm,
job.
Mm,
And this is the conceit, I suppose, of my book, is that Martha Berry has been working there for over 30 years because she's a spinster.
yeah.
And I had to do that with her because she would not have been allowed to work
Mm,
if
mm,
she'd been married. And that was a rule in the Commonwealth and state public sectors, even in local government. So librarians had to quit until the late 60s when that changed.
yeah.
Or if they weren't forced to quit, they were placed on short-term contracts, so they lost all their entitlements.
Mm,
mm,
And this is one of those things that, it really relates to today. Women have less super than men because of things
mm,
mm,
like this.
mm.
Um,
Nurses as well. I'm sure that they weren't allowed to date.
no, they weren't.
Yeah.
No, if you were married, out you go.
Mm,
Some women were given exemptions, but they were very special cases.
mm,
But there were a lot of women, and I kind of portray them in a roundabout way in the book, who were very smart, had been to the BBC where there had been women in more senior positions, and had come back learning all these skills about radio, and had come back to Australia, and they were the glass ceiling hit them on the top of the head.
mm,
And there's a scene in the book I don't want to give it away for people who haven't read it, but
Oh, no,
there's
we've encouraged people to read it. So it's
oh, okay. Well,
okay.
there's a
If
scene
they
in the
haven't,
book
bad
where
luck. Yeah.
it was one of my favorite. As soon as I read this in the research, I just had to include this story where a producer is so absolutely furious and frustrated about her lack of prospects, and that the fact that all these young boys, and they really are young boys, are coming in to take the senior positions. She
Mm.
hurls a typewriter out the window of the ABC offices in King's Cross in Sydney. She was sacked. Well,
But
probably rightly. She could have
you
killed
can
someone. Those things
understand.
weighed a ton and they're about this big.
Yes, I know. Well, it was probably like not the wisest way to, but I can imagine it was a build up and it would be so
Mm.
frustrating for
Oh, yes.
um, women, to do that. And it's the way you describe women as being the secretaries. Well,
Mm.
when I first started working, that was basically all the management was men, and
Yeah,
women were
yeah.
like in subservient roles doing photocopying and everything like that. But often they were smarter than their bosses.
Mm,
Their bosses would not have functioned without them.
yeah.
Mm.
And so I gave that to Martha Berry really because she'd been around so long. She was sort of a temporary. I had her being moved from pillar to post within the organization because she could do everything.
Yeah,
And she knows everything. So she
Mm.
knows where the bodies are buried, where the skeletons are, but she also has an idea about how the whole place runs.
yeah,
But she's always been overlooked. And look, I think just to the question about have things changed today, things had certainly changed when I started in 1984, but there was still the I had fantastic mentors, men, because the women weren't in positions of power. I had fantastic mentors, and I don't want to I don't want to look back with a 2025 lens and
yeah,
judge them, I suppose. They were very encouraging. I got a cadetship. They're very competitive. I got to do stories. I had the opportunities of all the other cadets who are men as well. But there was just a subtle sexism that they didn't even know they had.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And when it was pointed out to them, they would go, "Oh, oh yeah, okay. Oh no, no, you do that story." So it wasn't even conscious.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and I don't know if that has changed.
Mm.
And what the listeners might look at a TV news bulletin tonight, because I then worked in TV after I did a stint in radio. There's lots of women. There are male and female presenters. Lots of the reporters are women. Unfortunately, what the dynamic is that the senior reporters are men and they're permanent, but
Mm.
all the faces you would see on a TV bulletin, not all, you'd be surprised at how many of those women are hired casually.
yeah,
Mm.
Um, they're new to journalism, so they're cheap.
Yes.
And of course, they want a break in a media environment where jobs are disappearing.
Mm.
The other sort of sad thing about the way things have changed, but they want a break and they'll work because they want the experience, and good for them, and I don't blame them, but the pay's terrible.
Pay's terrible, and because of their profile, it's not like they could just, be a barista as a second
Yeah,
job or
yeah,
anything like that to
yeah.
kind of
And because
fill up the
it's a
coffers.
natural thing. We see
Yeah.
people on TV and think, oh, wow,
Yeah, they've
that's
really,
really
yeah,
successful. They've really
yeah,
made
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I
No,
think you've given us a little bit of insight into Martha before, but I want to dig back into her because she really was our hero. We love the characters. Martha is incredible. It's great to see a 50-year-old unmarried woman, the protagonist.
yeah,
But she doesn't have a love interest, and Belinda and I were talking about this before because we found it so fascinating. And I think Belinda, at that stage, I think you were probably a few chapters off finishing. This was last week, and you're like, maybe someone will come in. Like it's
Yeah.
a it's
Not that I wanted them
no,
to.
not at
No,
all.
but I actually
Yeah,
would have preferred you that you didn't. I was going to
yeah,
be disappointed if you did because I actually thought it was a really bold move
yeah,
in
yeah,
commercial fiction, and I applaud it
yes,
that the main character does not have to have a romantic
yeah,
interest to make
yeah,
a
Was
worthwhile
there any
character.
kind of pushback from the publisher? Was there anything, any conversations had around that, or it was just,
No.
this is it, this is the story, and we don't need that love interest?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
not one bit.
Yeah,
And
great.
I've been working with my publisher for
Mm,
almost 10 years, and she understands me and I her.
mm,
And um, um, I did two reasons, I guess. One, I didn't want that to be an easy out for Martha.
Yeah,
mm,
Like that's not a happy ending for her. Her happy ending was progressing
yeah,
and
mm,
being the writer she always wanted to be on the soap.
yeah,
mm.
And secondly, if she had had a romance, and she couldn't have got married because she would have had to lose her
yeah,
job,
Yeah.
which she'd fought so hard for and loved so much. So there was a kind of uh, a philosophical reason why, but I didn't give her a love interest, and a practical reason why in that era she would be
yeah.
at
Mm,
home.
But I
mm,
think that actually speaks to how commercial fiction has changed and
absolutely.
progressed,
Yeah.
because that would have been a big risk with readers to have, maybe 10 years ago, you couldn't have had a story about a
Mm,
50-year-old spinster in commercial fiction. That would have been not, acceptable. And so I think it's really great. I think it's really great that we're
mm,
telling different types of women's stories, and we're not stereotyping the
mm.
characters. And if the readers are coming along with that, because it's often driven by the readers and what they'll accept or not, I think that's, I actually thought it was quite a bold move, because I
Yeah.
can't think of a commercial historical fiction where there isn't a romantic interest in it. So I
Yeah,
actually
look,
really enjoyed it.
I hadn't even
Mm.
thought of that actually.
Yeah, so I was cheering you on, believe
Yeah,
it.
she
Oh,
was. And
thanks.
we were talking about it and saying this would be a great, book club book, not just for us, but for women out there
Mm,
with book clubs, because, the discussion that we were having around it was interesting. It was great. And Martha is a fabulous character. Just generally, but because of that as well, because of the era and because of what she chose, her happy ending, and the happy ending that you were giving her wasn't the guy coming in on the white horse.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And
yeah,
um no, I guess I didn't consciously because it's not a romance for a
Mm,
start, and I
mm,
didn't um not I love romance, don't get me wrong, but for this I wanted it to be her journey about
yeah.
what does a thwarted woman in the 1950s, what would be her dream? And I think and she does regret not. I mean, I didn't want her to be one dimensional. That she would have loved to have had the romance and the family, and it just didn't work out that way.
Mm, mm,
And she was looking after her mother, so she had that responsibility. And I've got friends, contemporaries of mine who have never married or had children, and God, now I look at it with three grown-up children, and I think I'm so jealous of them.
mm, mm,
Um, I'm jealous of parts of their lives, and they might well be of mine. I think if you could combine all of them, you'd have the perfect life.
mm.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
there's
well,
always
I mean,
something.
it's the point that women at that in Martha's era, they didn't really have a choice. As you said,
No,
it was
that's
either
right.
family or a career. You
Yeah,
certainly couldn't have both, or you couldn't have one at one time and change
no.
to another time. But while we absolutely loved Martha, we hated Quentin. He's an absolute awful character. And the story of men stealing or taking credit for women's work is right through history. It's happened a lot in science and
Yeah.
as well as literature. And what I
The
found,
discovery of DNA, for example.
yes, yes,
Oh, Belinda's
I think
frozen.
Belinda's frozen. Just while Belinda's coming back in, she did actually say to me that she feels like she's used up all of her internet. So I'm just going to have a look at the comments here, actually.
Mm,
So Kelly says, I've been asking everyone about Blue Hills. Everyone's excited to talk about it. Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting. Before I read this, I'd had
am I
this
still
conversation.
frozen?
You're in.
Oh no, you're back.
Okay.
You're back.
Were you just playing with my mind?
Yeah. I said you were concerned that you'd used up a lot of your internet. I've just in the comments. Tracy has said, "Hi all, just wanted to check that I have my name tonight. Yes, and not just iPhone user as last month." So
You're
that
there,
was you,
Kelly.
Tracy, and yes, you are. Um, uh, Kim says, "Did you speak to any women that worked at the ABC at that time?" I think we've sort of a little bit
No,
specifically
because
that.
they
Yeah.
would all be gone. Gwen Meredith,
Mm,
died more than 20 years ago, I think, maybe
mm,
2006, I think. No, but because I had sort of come of age in that environment, and I did my research about women in broadcasting. A couple of fantastic books, which are somewhere on my massive collection of
mm,
books. I did go back and look at experiences, and I just knew the way men talked about women.
mm,
Don't we all know that,
mm.
Mm.
no matter the
The
workplace?
way they talk to
Yeah.
women. Yes.
Yeah.
Look, there's so many comments here of I love Martha's journey.
Oh,
Sharon
yeah.
says
Thanks,
Martha's
Kim.
character was strong enough without the love interest. And I,
Yeah, thank you,
yeah.
Sharon. I agree.
Deborah
Yeah.
says, I love the book. Martha was an interesting character. I loved how you showed us her relationship between her mum and the next door neighbours. Quite realistic for her to be a spinster in those times with the lack of men after the war.
Yeah.
Belinda, you were in the middle of something where you
Oh, yes. Look, I
Mm,
was just saying that, the idea that men have stolen women's ideas, and we had
Quentin Quinn.
Natasha as a guest last month, and she had written a book about Marie Madeleine Foucault, who ran a resistance network in France. And after the war, the men who worked under her got medals, but she
mm,
didn't get any medals. She wasn't recognized. And I was thinking about Quentin Quinn. Like, I know that you've got him that he's drunk and he doesn't quite know what's happening. But for these other men, they really just did steal women's.
Oh, Belinda's frozen again.
she's
But
frozen again.
so
But
she's probably,
you can run with that one anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Mm,
mean, it's that typical thing that a woman will say something in a meeting, and a man next to her will repeat what she said and get all the credit for it.
mm,
And
mm,
I kind of wanted to use that principle, and it's something that men do subconsciously, I
mm,
think. I
mm,
don't. I mean, I've got three sons and a husband who I love them all,
mm, mm,
but I think it's subconscious. They don't. They kind of have the thought and then claim it as their own because they're
mm.
so used to having their voices heard.
Yeah. Mm,
And as women, we often apologize for speaking up.
mm, mm.
And there's that I love that saying now that no is a complete sentence.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't have to apologize. And I wanted Martha to. Now it's a bit of a. Some people have said, oh, it's a bit of a long bow that he didn't realize he wasn't writing the scripts. Well, that's true, but I wanted her to butt up right against. So for those who haven't read it, Martha's assigned to a new producer who's going to create the next Blue Hills radio serial as the
Mm,
sun sets. And he's totally incompetent. He's young. He thinks he's hot shit, excuse my French. Um, but she has to do all the work supporting him. Haven't we been in that position before?
mm,
I
mm,
myself have been in that position before.
mm,
And
mm,
so I wanted her to actually do all the work and him to take all the glory.
mm,
And so I invented a conceit where he thinks his job is to go and have lunch and brag to his university friends, but the deadline is approaching
mm,
and people need to be hired for the show and scripts need to be written. And so she starts thinking, I've got ideas and I can't let this fall over because if
mm,
this is my big break and
mm,
if I let this show fall over, then that's my career too.
mm.
So she kind of
It's how
works
women think.
around.
I mean, we're so
Yeah,
used to carrying the load of everything. And I think it's
yeah,
really interesting to be on social media at the moment where there's memes about that, where we're starting to talk about how women carry an emotional workload around the house, but also
yeah.
at work.
Emotional labor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
emotional labor. Do you see any solutions to that?
Yeah, here's what I do. As I said, three sons and a husband. Two have moved out.
Yeah.
There's only one left, but it still happens. They're not listening, so I can say,
Mm.
Mum, where's that?
Yeah.
Mum, where's my phone? Oh, that's my husband saying, Viv,
Yeah.
where's the phone? Where's my
Mm.
phone? And I go, I don't know.
Mm.
I just don't. I
Mm.
don't participate in it now. And
Oh,
often he's just sort of
so
talking to
good.
himself, you know,
Yeah.
like he's talking about where's my phone? Where's my
Mm.
blow? Where did I put the and I before I used to go, oh, I know where it is. I'll help him. And oh, it's on the
Mm.
kitchen table. And
Mm.
now I just think, well, I think it's turning 60, you know. I go,
Mm.
I don't know.
Don't know. You know exactly where it is though, because you know where
Yeah.
everything is.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
look,
yeah.
if I do or I don't, I just don't expend that
Yeah.
emotional labor looking for it.
Yes.
And my
Oh,
son
Yeah.
will say, where's dad? And I go, I don't know.
No idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's in his office.
Back?
No,
Am
I
I
don't
back
know.
or am I still
You
frozen?
are. No, you're
Okay,
back.
I'm
You're
Yeah.
back.
back,
All
you're
right.
back.
I was going to say, like, I think my philosophy is my love for people is I don't do for them what they can do for themselves.
Mm.
Unless they're
Mm.
a child, a cat, or a very elderly person that
Mm.
can't find their shoes,
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm not going to help a grown
Yeah.
ass human being find their shoes.
Yeah.
And if there's consequences of it, they're going to have to learn to put their shoes in the cupboard, you know. So that's
Although I think it might come back to bite me because hubby turned 60 last year and I have just turned 60. I think we all look fabulously youthful, by the way. But I'm starting to forget things too. So when I say, where's
Yeah.
my phone?
Where's my
We
phone?
kind
Don't
of
know.
we
Yeah.
kind of prop each other up in that respect. So maybe I've got to rethink my strategy.
Oh, that is funny. So, how are you going, Belinda? I think you
I'm
might be.
good.
You're good?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
No, you.
I'm all good. Well, one of the things that I really love and appreciate about your historical fiction, Victoria, is your love of historical detail and the level of research that you do. So just tell us a little bit about the kind of research that you do for, you did for the radio hour. And I think I heard you speak once and you said that you even research how women had to wash dishes. And you mentioned a metal cage that had a piece of soap in it.
Yeah.
My father's recently gone into aged care, so I've had to sort through his myriad of stuff that he's kept. And I found in the laundry one of those cages with it must have been like from the 60s, a
It's
piece of
velvet
like
flakes or
soap.
velvet soap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we just forget how labor intensive people's lives are. But
Mm.
when you're creating a character, knowing all of that, unless we're just super geeky and we like to know that kind of stuff, what sort of research did you do for the radio hour?
Oh, look, totally super geeky. And I completely own up to that and I find it really interesting. And I figure if I'm finding it interesting, readers might also find it interesting.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I had to research things like how a sound effect's made on a radio serial.
Mm.
So I went to some of the books I mentioned about the history of radio drama, and I looked at photos online, and
The
it's just
coconuts for the
yeah, the
horse.
Yeah.
coconut
Yeah.
for a horse. They often had a door, probably this big, in a frame with a door handle to recreate the sound of a door actually
Yeah,
closing. So that was physically a little door closing, but it was
Mm.
this big. They would have a punch on a cabbage can simulate a sock in the jaw, for example. And I thought all those things were just fun. You know, my editor at HQ HarperCollins has a saying for me though: petticoats. And she'll put it in the comments when she's editing my books, petticoats. And that what she means is we want to see the pretty frock. We don't want to see all the stuff holding it up.
yeah,
Mm.
And so sometimes I do, like, you know, if I'm finding it interesting, readers might, a little too much.
Mm.
yeah.
So I do love that. But I got caught out on this book. I
Mm.
had Martha Berry putting her collapsible umbrella in her handbag,
Oh,
1956. And more than one reader told me, because they were there at the time, there were no collapsible umbrellas in 1956. It wasn't until the late 60s.
Mm.
what amazing.
Of all the
Mm.
things I research, and so of course I use that story now because I think it's hilarious. Of
Yeah.
all the things I had to research, I did not think about umbrellas.
Mm.
They're funny. I find I usually get notes. It's funny from men. I never get really notes from women, but
Yeah.
I get notes from men, and it'll be over something to do with like a record player, or I've introduced this model record player 6 months before it
Oh,
actually came out,
yeah,
or
Mm.
yeah.
something to do with a car, or
A plane
the,
or
the subway bell goes ding when the doors open for you to get in, not ding after you get in. But I love it. I always write to them and thank
Yeah.
them for their
yeah,
meticulous
Yes.
detail. But I
yeah.
do
Mm.
think it's kind of funny that they feel that they need to write to me to
To
explain.
let you know.
Yeah, look, I'm sure.
Well, yes. My dear readers told me at an event I did, and someone told me, and I was just mortified. And of course, I think it's hilarious. So I've used that story from then
Mm.
on because they were so lovely about it. But it was really heartwarming for me because clearly they were so invested in the story.
Mm.
But as an author, when you get it wrong, like I did about the umbrellas, it lifts the reader out of the story just like that.
Mm. Mm.
And we don't want that to happen. We want that immersion to continue. So yeah,
Mm.
it's my funny umbrella story.
And of
Yeah, but
course,
I
your
love the research.
readers are now not, they're not just in Australia. So, it's been released in America. And, how has that gone, an Australian story in America? So I've had a bit of experience. My first novel that I ever wrote was a paranormal romance, and it was picked up by an American publisher. This is like 25 years ago. And they said, we love it, but it can't be set in Australia. We have to set the whole thing in America. So I had to rewrite it. But of course, with my novel Tilda recently, they were happy to have the Australian setting, but it was
Yeah.
a contemporary Australian setting. So this is very different. Like, how has it been? How have readers been? Have they reached out to you? What's the response been in America?
It's so funny that the American publisher who the Radio Hour was published with has been looking at my books for a few years, apparently.
Mm,
I didn't know this, and
mm,
they felt the stories were too Australian. So the Land Girls was about, women's
mm,
land army in Australia, and the Women's Pages was about an Australian journalist in Sydney, and it was about
mm,
Australia in wartime. And um, I can't think of a more Australian story than the ABC
mm,
Blue Hills. It references, having to quit when you're married. It to me, it's so Australian.
mm,
But it was just this, I think probably because it was so character driven and they related to Martha's journey and her
mm,
character that they overlooked it. But I think people like Leanne Moriarty, and I'm not in the same atmosphere as her,
mm.
but her books are all set in Australia and it doesn't
She's
matter.
blazed the trail for
It
everyone else, but also
certainly has.
streaming services.
Yes.
We now have access to stories set all over the world. You're there pressing and going, I'll watch, a Swedish crime series tonight, or an Australian series or whatever, a Bollywood film. So it seems to have opened up the world a lot because I think, and it was always the American reader wasn't used to
Yes.
reading out is something set outside America, but
Yeah.
now they're very open to it, and
Yeah.
there's a
And
lot of Australian authors who, are being published there, doing well
yeah,
there. Yeah.
I
Mm,
think England is a harder market to crack than the United
it
States, actually,
is.
because it's
It is.
I mean, there's 60 million people and very, very strong local publishing program
Mm,
and very parochial.
mm. Have
Um,
you been published in the UK?
no, no, I
No.
haven't.
No, fine.
Um,
Yeah.
but look at Colin from Accounts, the
Oh,
sitcom.
love
It's
it.
been a huge hit all over the
Yeah.
world. The Poms, I say that with affection, the
Yeah.
Poms absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
won BAFTAs and all sorts of things. So I can't think of another, more Australian show than that one.
Mm, mm,
Um, in its humor and its,
mm,
the way the characters speak and just their accents as
mm,
well. So, yeah, it's no, it's been. I think of the my American publishing experience as kind of cherry on the icing on the
mm.
cake, really.
When was it published there?
In April this year.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
did you get over there at all for it? Or
No, look, I thought I might, and I hate to get political until Trump was elected.
yeah,
And then I just thought, I just
yeah,
can't go there
yeah,
now. It's
yeah.
one, I've always had, I've been to America before, but I always had this slight, their gun violence is so scary to me.
Mm,
And then when Trump was elected, I just thought, no, I can't, I can't. And in fact, I know someone just 2 weeks ago who's a public servant. She's
mm,
not anyone that anyone would know outside of a sort of small Adelaide bubble, was
mm,
refused entry into New York,
mm,
was put back on the plane.
mm.
She's not a, as I said, she's not a, and she's a great person, but she's
Mm,
not a, she doesn't write editorials in the newspaper or has
yeah.
any public profile in that kind of way that you
Mm,
think might lead to that
mm,
expulsion, but she was.
mm.
So I just think it's, yeah, I,
Just keep thinking this too shall pass, and yeah,
yeah, I
and
don't want to spend
yeah,
my money in that economy at the moment,
yeah, yeah,
but um, I
yeah.
think it's
No, I
very troubling.
understand. And
So
have they taken your next book as well? Like, will they?
Um, it's my next book is with my publisher now, and I'm waiting for feedback. So I think
Mm,
once that acceptance happens, that they'll probably have a look.
yeah,
Again, a
great.
very Australian story, and who knows?
Yes.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
it's I don't know. I mean, I was published there earlier this year as well, and it's just throwing it into the wind. Who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows how it's
exactly,
going to
exactly.
land. But it's great to do that. But it's also really great that you've written a very Australian story and that has been embraced over
Yeah,
there. I think that's
yeah,
a wonderful thing, and it shows there is a shift in American readers. Certainly since, my first paranormal romance was published
yeah.
all those years ago.
I think you're right, though. I think Netflix has
Mm,
probably sort of precipitated that whole change
yeah,
because
yeah,
that platform is open to, if you sell to Netflix, apparently, not that I ever have, but it's available everywhere all at once.
yes, yeah. And,
So they can really
and you're
see.
sitting, so shows like Lost Flowers of Alice Hart,
Yeah,
Trent Dalton's Boy
yeah.
Swallows.
Boy Swallows
Yeah,
Universe. Yeah,
all of those have been huge successes on the global Netflix
yeah,
platform, which
yeah,
opens up real Australian stories as well. So
for
I
sure.
guess that they're embracing more books
Yeah.
also. And so just give us a little bit of insight into your writing day.
Oh, like I'm really ill-disciplined, I have to say. I was saying to Belinda before we came on air that I read more than one medical professional saying there's, eight really critical things about aging. Um, you know, Obviously be a healthy weight, whatever that is for
Mm,
you. Eat healthily, don't drink too much, don't smoke. Well, I don't smoke. I probably wine.
yeah,
Um,
I like a wine.
and exercise, regular exercise. But one of the most important things is to sleep.
Mm,
Get enough sleep. And that one I can do.
mm,
So I'm not one of those people, never have been, who gets up at crack of dawn and sits at the
mm,
desk at 6 o'clock or whatever. My best time to write was always when I worked full time, was in the evenings, from
mm,
about 6:30 to 8:30. And now that I write full time, I kind of if I'm in full bore writing mode, and I'm on holidays at the moment because I've
mm,
submitted a book and I'm waiting to work on the edits with my publisher. When I'm in writing mode, I try to be at the desk at 9 o'clock and do my admin stuff and do 2,000 words a day. Sometimes it happens quite quickly.
mm.
Other times the dog's at the door, scratching the door to be fed at 5 o'clock, and I'm no, just 10 more words, and then you're mine. So I mean, you both know sometimes
Mm,
words flow easier than other times, and
mm,
sometimes it depends where you are in the book as well. So yeah, 2,000 words a day, and then I figure if I do that 50 days of the
mm,
year, I will have a book.
mm.
And that makes it seem much more manageable, although it doesn't kind of,
Yeah,
that's working days as well. So
yeah,
that's a lot of time.
yeah,
But
that's amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about what your next book is about?
I'm really superstitious about
Yeah.
that. All I'll say, it's set in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of, the radio hour was set in the 50s.
Mm.
This book is set in the 60s. It was a time of big social change in Australia. Um, and that's all I'll say. Until I hear from my publisher that it's
I
perfect.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But fingers crossed that will be out next April, early May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what are you two working on at the moment?
Well, I told everyone I'd finished my book, and then it was like, I have to do a bit of a structural edit on it. So, I have the bones of my next book
Bones.
there,
Are
and
they good
I move it
bones?
around. Yeah, I think they're really solid bones, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's a bit of meat I've got to kind of weave
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it'll be that way with me too. And I love that process of being edited. My publisher is the first person to read my books. So
Mm,
no one else sees it before she
mm,
does. So it's the
mm,
first real feedback actually. So
mm,
I always treasure it because they see things we can't see, right?
mm,
Yeah. What
mm.
about you, Belinda?
I'm almost afraid to speak because I seem to disappear as soon as I open.
I'll tell them if you do.
Yeah, I've just finished the Italian correspondent, which has just gone off for its structural edit.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm pretty excited about that. My publisher's read it. She's excited about it. She made some changes to it and it's gone to the editor. So I have a book and I
Wow.
like the editing process. So I'm looking forward to working on that. But I also have to get busy on my next book as well. Um,
Same.
yeah, and also I have a passion project that's
Mm,
coming out that Jane and I have just done for Soul Queen. So I've got a journal that has lots of tips about how to reach a goal. So you'll
Oh,
really set it out well, Victoria, how you go about, being ready to write a book in
mm.
12 months. But that's one of the things I put in the Feel Good journal about how to set a goal.
And we just had a little
Yeah.
conversation about it beforehand. We filmed that, and that will be on the Facebook group on the 4th.
Yeah, of
okay.
August.
4th of July, August.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I definitely need that because I've tried to impose structure on myself. I'm not a plotter.
No.
I'm a total pantser, and I think that's as you were saying, 20 books. I think I just have to accept that's my program.
I think you do because
I,
whatever
yeah,
you're doing it well.
doing it
Oh,
very
thank
well.
Because
you.
this
Thank
is
you.
book 20 and readers love you. You have a great reputation. You're so well loved. Your books, everyone, it's like to be read pile or auto buy.
Oh,
You know,
thank
so
you.
many people have that, and you've knocked it out of the ballpark again with this.
Oh,
It was a great
but
read, and
oh, thank you. But you know what it's like, both of you, that even though it's 20 books, every time you open that chapter one, it's like
mm,
starting again.
Yes,
mm, mm,
exactly.
We know we can do it because we've done it before, but that seems to fly out the window.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, Victoria, you've been a wonderful guest. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm sorry, I don't know why I've been in and out. And
I blame your cats.
Yeah, it's the cats.
well, the possums are hungry, so that they're
Yeah.
running
Oh,
around with their NBN. But it's been such a delight to have you, and we wish you all the very best for your next book. Be very
thank
excited
you.
about
Yeah,
that
can't wait to see the next one,
coming
Victoria.
out.
Yeah.
And thank you so much to our lovely members for joining in with the discussion. It's always so good to see you. Next month, our book. Now, this is a book. I don't know if you've heard of this, Victoria, but it was written by two authors who
I have heard of it.
together. So it's going to be a lovely Regency romp with one of the characters from Jane Austen or some of the characters from Jane Austen. So
Miss Bingley.
Bingley Private Detective. Um,
Mm.
so that will be our book for August. So get reading. It's a lot of fun. If you've got the winter blues, this will cheer you up. So get going on that. And we look forward to seeing you next month for another Book Queens.
Thank you for having me. And to all the people who took the time to comment Thank you. I will go back to the Facebook page and read them and add my responses too if we didn't get
Excellent.
to them tonight.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Night, everyone.
Thank you. Love you, book queens.
Bye.
Does this make me a book princess?
You're a queen. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.